It is 5 o'clock on Monday, August the 26th, 2024. The BEDC Board reserves the right to reconvene, recess, or realign the regular session or call executive session or order of business at any time prior to adjournment. I'm calling the meeting to order now. Looks like we've got some public comments, so we will go ahead and address those right now. Let's keep in mind we have 3 minutes each. So we've got one from John Bash, one from Riley Bash, and then another one from Alexander Hamilton. What a name. That's great. Do you mind if we wait till 4 to the topic you want to? Okay, very good. All right, so I'll ask John or Riley, which one wants to come up and start?
All right. Hello, everyone. I have some information regarding the Mocha Ventures Nebraska project. If I can hand those out, if we can hand those out. I know later in the agenda there is a topic talking about the industrial park. If we want to wait till then to go over this with you, answer any questions, we can. But if we want to do this right now, then we can go ahead with that. But
No, let's go ahead and.
okay.
We are starting at 5:01 with the public comments. Go ahead.
Can we go ahead and pull up the MOCA agenda item that's on closed session and go into closed session to discuss that? I'd like to do that now.
You'd like to go into the closed
Yeah.
session now? Okay, gentlemen, we got a recommendation by our attorney. We're going to go ahead and go into closed session right now. Executive session, yeah. And so we'll come back to you guys.
No problem.
So, the Bastrop,
Pull up the agenda.
yeah, right. 5A, the Bastrop BEDC Board of Directors will meet in a closed executive session pursuant to the Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, to discuss the following. Number one, Section 551.087, economic development negotiations regarding project electric line. Number two, Section 551.071, consultation with attorney regarding the performance agreement with Project Fiesta. And number three, Section 551.071, consultation with attorney regarding the performance agreement with Mocha Ventures Nebraska, LLC. And when we get back, we will reconvene into open session to discuss, consider, and/or take any action necessary related to the executive session noted herein. It is now 5:03. Okay, it is 5:51, and we are back in the public portion. And so we are going to go ahead and continue on with the public comment portion. So I will ask again if John and Riley would like to come up and...
I'm sorry, Chair.
Please.
I would suggest, since we're on the MOCA agenda item, just let MOCA come up and speak on that agenda item, as opposed to the public comment part.
That would be fine, too.
Okay, so obviously we've got the bullet points here. You guys read over them. I'll start out. Do we have any questions from the board? Okay, that works. Okay, so as we sit right now with our process, our timeline, we turned our project in for our building permit application on the 6th. We were asked for 2 more items to have that complete, ready to further on the review to get a building permit. We got those in, we got those turned in, and we are waiting for the building department to do their review, so we can pay the fee and continue on with the application review, which leads to the permit issuance. So that's where we're at. When we came back in March and we were told, do the project, go do it, here's your due date. We ran with it, we got as far as we could, we got to the due date, we turned it in, and here we are now, ready for the city to keep furthering along the review. So,
You know, I think Riley's described it as well as I could, but, you know, we just don't want this project to end as close as we are. We're at the 1 yard line, really, at this point, and we need to review it and get a permit and move forward. And that's what our goal is.
Okay. Have any questions from any of the directors here?
So the permits that you're talking about is for a 4,000 square foot building, is that correct?
correct, yes.
And what will that be used for?
That will be used for Mocha Financial.
To do what with?
They will be doing their government contracts, working through that. They will be hosting government entities. They will be doing onboarding to get clients to be using the product, program development, all of that.
And so it will be an office building, storage building, what?
No, it'll be an office building. That's where Mocha Financial will move. They're currently on Main Street right now, and to accommodate what they need for their growth, that's what they would be using.
And this feels almost like hearsay to say it out loud because I'm not sure, but does the contract require that you build 40,000 square feet of building space over some period of time? Is that, or maybe that's a question for our attorney.
I believe that it does, yes. I'm just
Yes.
double checking.
Yeah.
That's the incentive side of it, correct. You know, when we came in March, we told the difficulties with the project. We've learned even further that with the Houston Toad, that instead of 27 acres, it cuts it down to 8 acres, approximately 8 acres, which we're actively trying to work through that with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. They take their sweet time on it, so we've been working on that for months. We've had 3 different site plans turned into them for their, so we can ask for a variance on that. So the piece of ground, the buildable area has changed over the project. We're trying to get as much as we can. The site plan that we have right now, the building plan that we have right now, it is what we can do at this current time. That was to get us to this point where we could get a building permit. The alternate site plan that we have with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, it has multiple buildings, the other buildings to get to that 40,000 square foot. But to get the building permit so we can stay with our contract with the BDC, that is what we had to do at the current moment.
And what is the time frame for the remainder of the 40,000 square feet of buildings?
A lot of that depends on what the U.S. Fish and Wildlife comes back and says to us.
Well, contractually, what's the,
Contractually,
yeah,
I want to say that's completed by 2027. But
Do you have a copy of that site plan that you gave to Texas Parks and Wildlife that you could show?
not on me, not those other site plans. I do have, you know, the site plan and the drainage, the building permit application, what we've turned in to the building department, but not on hand. I don't have those others that we've turned into the U.S. Fish and Wildlife.
I guess the thing I'm struggling with is doing what's right for the citizens of Bastrop, because a 4,000 square foot building put on 28 acres, even if only 8 acres were to be developable, if we just asserted that as true for the sake of discussion. Still doesn't seem like that really gets us to a good ROI for this project for our taxpayers. And so that's the thing that I struggle with, is looking at this from the perspective of, is this a good deal? And I don't see yes yet. And so that's just kind of the way I'm looking at it. And it kind of also, when we factor in the difficulty with which we have gotten to this point, where it's past the last date to have a building permit issued and no building permit is issued, you know, we're kind of, it's a problem. Yeah.
Absolutely. Would you say that the issue that you see, obviously, you know, we want to be, we also, Mocha Ventures, we want to do good for the citizens of Bastrop, the taxpayers of Bastrop. We want to live up to our side of the contract. We don't want to put the EDC, Bastrop, in a bad situation where, oh, that was a bad deal. But for us, our biggest priority is to keep the progress, or just to keep the project going. So with that being said, if it's with the tied-in incentive program, the incentive dollars, we could renegotiate that with the EDC if that's something that would make the deal better. There has been a lot of changes in this project in the last 3 years, not gonna lie. You know, going from 40,000 square foot to 4,000 at the current juncture, yeah, there's no surprise, that's a lot different. But that's where we're at right now. We're trying to live up to getting that building permit. It has taken time. We are past that, of course. But like I said, we want to keep the project going, especially with all the work that we've put into it. And to see the review go through the building department, see that go through, that's what we would like to see.
I- Go
Can
ahead.
I respond? Board Member Kirkland, their original completion date was January of 2026. When the board granted an extension, a one-year extension, it moved to January of 2027. So completion date for the 40,000 square feet would have to be 18 months away,
From now.
January of 2027. And in terms of the Houston Toad, we had a rezoning case with them September 30th of 2021. And the Houston Toad was discussed with your realtor and your development team at that point and was brought up as an issue of concern for that particular site. Were you at that zoning case? Or
don't
pre-application,
remember.
sorry, pre-application meeting. So you had Susan Nogus, John Burns
Yes.
as your representatives.
Correct. Yes.
I would say we were not there. John
Okay.
Burns.
No, John Burns was there, correct. And I'll kind of jump onto the bullet list real quick. The point where it says we had a full site plan for the original 27 acres, that 200-foot offset, that was learned in the last 8 months. We learned that with talks with U.S. Fish and Wildlife. There, as of right now, that 200-foot offset, you cannot do any disturbance 200 foot off of the pond. We learned that in the last 8 months. We were not aware of that beforehand. We had a full site plan created before we learned that knowledge, and that's where changing that site plan came about.
Just a couple of observations, if you don't mind.
Sure.
You guys came, looked at the property, liked what you saw. You decided to make an offer on the project, on the land. You knew it was in the Toad. You knew it. We didn't hold it back. It's been public information since day one. Anybody that builds in this county and others that are inside the toad know it. So that should not be a surprise, and that's on you. It's not on us, that's on you.
Right.
What I'd like to understand, and maybe it's a rhetorical question, but you came here in March. We told you there was a deadline of August the 7th. When did you turn in your permit? Oh, let me think. August the 6th. One day before that due date, knowing full and well it takes the city more than one day to approve a permit? I guess I don't understand why you waited so long. Can you at least answer that question?
We're not dragging our feet. There's been a lot gone into this. I mean, that's the answer that I would give you, is that we have been working hard at it. We've got Southwest engineers that have spent countless hours on it. We have different people that have put a ton of time into it. It's just taken a lot of time. I mean, I'm being straightforward with you. I'm not.
Anybody that's ever done construction knows it takes a lot of time. I
Right.
mean, that's pretty obvious. Okay.
On the remaining two items, did you not know you were supposed to turn them in? I'm just wondering if because it says we turned everything in and then we completed the two remaining items. Did you know when you turned it in, that you were missing the two items?
That would be a better question for our designer on that. He was the one in charge. He could not be here tonight. He during the summer he told me I could talk about this, but he had unexpected death. His father passed away unexpectedly, and so he had to take 3 weeks to take care of his father's estate. I didn't want to say that as an excuse, but since that was addressed, had to put that out there.
And I don't, if you know, because it sounds like I'm not trying to ask you a question that is inappropriate for you to answer.
Right.
The remaining two items, can the city say when they received those remaining two items? Or do you know when you think you turned the remaining two items in? I mean, like, I'm kind of like, anybody in the room, anybody?
It was recently. It was recently.
Yes, so the last item that we got from them was on August 7th, and it was a water wastewater service checklist for the T&I. That was the last time we got an item.
Their com check in there.
And then their com check, that was received on August 16th, 2024.
And the TDLR was when?
Sure. Let me see. TDLR, that was on August 20th, 2024.
So you pretty much knew that the application was insufficient when you turned it in on the 6th, correct?
That would be a better question for Brandon Battles.
It's a true statement, though. If there were two things missing, if there were three things, if there were one thing, it was an insufficient, incomplete application.
Yeah. The resubmittals were received August 23rd.
August 23rd for the resubmittals?
Which was Friday, right? Okay.
So, and this is a real generic, general question, because we can do what time did you do this, and that's all historical, and it's going to sound ugly, and I don't mean it to be ugly, but how can you assure us that you are going to be able to meet what you're supposed to be doing in the future and help us have confidence that you can finish what you're saying you're going to do? Because unfortunately, and again, I'm not trying to be ugly, factually, if you take, and I don't want anybody's parents to die, and life happens and frogs hop and, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, but just factually, as a person that was here from when we called an emergency meeting because you wanted to buy the property, I feel like this board's granted extensions and really gone out of our way. So what are you bringing to the table tonight that you haven't been able to do before?
We have a couple.
Looks like you're getting some help.
We have a contract with Mocha Financial that we need to build this building for Mocha Financial.
But that's not new, right?
Right, no. So, we're trying to get this built so we can live up to that. So as far as the future would go, we are with Mocha, and as they go, that's what we are expected to live up to as the landlord.
Okay,
So,
okay, thank you.
yeah.
One more question for you.
Are y'all familiar with a performance bond?
Well, I know what one is, but, be a little more specific.
Yeah, but we're a long way away from.
I mean, can they-
They don't have approved plans, they don't have a
Well,
contract.
you asked the question if they could give you any proof that they could get
Yeah,
it done on
but,
time.
and that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I'm talking
Well, the
about
bond
the
would
other
ensure that
stuff.
would happen
I,
on time.
well, and because we would require the performance
Yes,
bond.
okay, I was making sure.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
And Mrs. Schroeder, just for clarity, so there was 2 iterations of both the TDLR and the COM check. The first iteration of the COM check was August 16th, and the second iteration was August 23rd. For the TDLR, the first iteration was August 20th, and then the second iteration was August 25th, so that would have been Sunday. Yes, ma'am.
Sunday?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for clarifying the dates.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, going into, you've got 18 months, so you've got a 4,000 square foot building to build, right? But then you're also, under your contract, you're required to have the 40,000 square foot building built by January of 2027, which is 18 months away. Knowing everything that you have to go into in order to get the permit, because you've gone through this process now, do you think that you can have that 40,000 square foot building plus the 4,000 square foot building on the ground by then?
I mean, I'll be perfectly honest with you, no, I would say we can't at that point be able to have another building of that size because of a lot of reasons.
So if I took that to its logical conclusion, if we were to say,
Thank you. I was going to clarify that. The first thing to clarify is that January of 27 is not 18 months away. It's,
My bad.
yeah.
My bad.
right, so what you're basically saying is that if we were to agree to what you're asking us to do, we already know you're not going to be able to meet the commitment on the performance agreement.
Can you re-answer, since the time frame has been corrected? Do you, in 29 months, do you think you could have that accomplished?
Well, obviously, barring the Houston Toad outcome on the available ground, we've done all of the drainage, the site plan to get that ready. We've done all that engineering for that side. That was the majority of getting that work done, the overall site plan. Once you,
No, sir, that's not correct. You originally submitted an overall site plan. You've since amended it. The site plan that you have under review and was approved was only for the small portion of the 4,000 square foot building. You have much engineering to do for the entire site plan.
I'll say this, though. Before we had to change the scope of the project to the current situation, we did do a full site plan for the full 27 acres. So that might not have been turned in, but we do have the work behind it. So I don't want to sit here and say it will be done in 27 months, 28, but 29. But with that being done, it gives us a really good chance to do so. Depending on the different variances that we can get through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, we were told last week that we should have an answer from them in the next week or two. That's promising. So that changes the whole outlook of the project on that.
Do you have a contractual obligation to Mocha Financial on a date to deliver the building?
Yes, we do.
And what's that date?
I'm not sure.
Oh, not on the date. It's had to change. We've got our contract with Mocha Financial. The original date was in concurrence with the original time frame that we went into contract with the BEDC.
The performance agreement that you have with us.
The performance agreement, so yes. So that hasn't been changed with Mocha Financial. There is a grace with that. And so as soon as we can get our, situation figured out with the BEDC, that's our next thing that we have to go and.
So what my ears heard, and I'm not sure what everybody else heard, but is that Mocha Financial thinks you're going to have a 40,000-foot building in January of '26.
That's the plan.
No, he said that they haven't amended their agreement. I'm talking about between them and Mocha Financial.
Correct. Correct. It's a long-term plan with Mocha Financial.
Okay. And our date is even a year later, and you're not sure if you're going to be able to hit January of '27.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just trying to get the
Right,
dates
right,
together. Okay. I appreciate your honesty. Thank you.
Any further questions from any directors here? Okay. Thank you very much. We're going to go back into executive session. Charlie, do I need to read the whole thing over again?
Just the section 3, consultation with attorney on performance agreement with Mocha.
Okay, so, right. So 5A3, actually, there's two of them. 5A2, section 551.071, consultation with attorney regarding the performance agreement with Project Fiesta. 5A3, section 551.071, consultation with attorney regarding the performance agreement with Mocha Ventures Nebraska LLC. It is 6:15. Okay, it is now 6:28 p.m. on Monday, August the 26th. We are back in regular session.
I motion to terminate the performance agreement with Mocha Ventures LLC and direct general counsel to provide notice to the appropriate parties.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Very good. The motion carries. We will now, let's see, we're going to go back in executive.
Go back to the beginning.
Going back to the beginning. All right. So we will now move to 3A, update on the status of Bear Camp. I'm sorry, please go ahead.
If I was Alexander Hamilton, I would really like you to go. I'm here for the whole meeting. You're here for the whole, okay.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, you're right about that. I should have asked that. I apologize. Okay, 3A, update on the status of the candidates for the BEDC Business Attraction, Retention, and Expansion called BEAR position. Sylvia?
Good afternoon, Board. So wanted to bring the entire board up to speed that we've interviewed several applicants for the position. We received over 27 applications. We had what we believe to be 4 candidates for interview that could potentially fill the position. At this point, we do not have a selected applicant to fill the position. We continue to receive applications. Staff, myself specifically, understood that we may perhaps wait until filling, and so I wanted clarification on that directly. It sounds like I was misinterpreting some of the board. And if we move forward, we are making more of an attempt to continue to push via paid marketing in many professional, organizational, and other professional publications.
On your staff report, one of the things you said was to stress municipal experience, and I know that this isn't, this is just a status, but I think that is a really good idea, and I was glad to see that you guys added that.
Yeah, I actually agree with that a whole lot. And yeah, we need to continue on this. We need this position filled. So I'd like to go ahead and continue. Can you think, are there other areas, in your opinion, that we could start marketing this besides the 2 or 3 that we have right now?
So when we boosted it, when we had a paid boost, is when we had the influx of applicants. So we'll do another higher paid boost with a wider general net, and hopefully we'll have another influx.
That's why you were looking, I was like, my mic's on. So I just have a question for the board. I guess it's just the two of you seasoned people. I was looking at the job posting, and the salary posted was $74,000, and then I started going down the rabbit hole to look and see what salaries other cities were, right. Is that what I said? Oh, I said 74. I probably slurred it. And it was anywhere for a city of our size, 60 to 80, I think. And then I started looking more at the directors, what directors get paid, and they get paid on average for a city our size anywhere from 80,000 to 120. So why would we be not looking for a director versus a bear? I mean, I've wanted a bear. I want both, actually. Why was it, or has it been decided, why has it been decided not to look for a director?
Well, let me take a crack at that. I think should we get a person with a resume that could take that would be a distinct possibility we could have that discussion about, right? Because right now, we're on a interim basis, right? So if we find the right person that could fit the bill, I think that's a worthy conversation to have. But right now, we went that direction because that's what we're looking for. Can we change it? Yeah, we could change it, but nonetheless, I believe that position is just kind of a step down from the executive director.
Right.
If we find the right person, we had that discussion.
The only difference between them was the budgeting. It was budgeting and strategic planning for the overall, Economic Development Corporation. But I was thinking if we take the 74,000 plus the 50,000 that we're currently giving for an interim director, that brings us to 124, I think, and that's what the average. So why not just look for a director?
We actually removed the salary requirement, and that's why we got a greater influx of people also.
Because
We didn't
you
put a
think-
cap at 74.
So the cap was 74,
The cap listed in the prior job description was 74.
and there's you have no cap on
No,
it now.
we removed
So what
it.
if someone then comes in I don't know if that helps us though, because if you get someone who has exponential experience and they want 145, we got to have a cap.
Well, you have two members of the board who are on the interviewing committee, so we'll make that decision at that point in time.
Okay. Yeah, I just, I didn't know why we decided not to get a director, but in looking at, in terms of what we want to do going forward, I think I like the description of a bear, and that person is solely focused on what we have been talking about them being focused on. But I also think at some point we would need a director. Would it be more beneficial to get a director or get a bear? But
I think the initial conversation was one related to budget, because you were paying the prior director $170,000 plus $1,000 a month car allowance.
right, but
And then that's the base rate, not the loaded salary rate.
right, but again, when I looking at the just our area, Buda, other areas, it's 120, 150 max, right? So I don't want to tell him he was getting overpaid, but
I didn't hire him.
We kind of made that determination after he was let go, so yes, that's firmly in our mind.
just
yeah.
kind of putting, bug in the ear and to see where we're headed here the next year or two. Thanks.
Any other comments, questions?
Okay, thank you. All right, we will move on then to 3B, update on the status of moving the BEDC office to City Hall when the current office lease expires in December 2024.
So right now, the utilities office staff, they're preparing for a move to a remodeled utility business office, which is over by Main Street by the post office. That move should happen and be complete by the end of September, which Angela has a part-time person helping her scan, get things boxed up. And so we should be ready for a move by the time the lease ends at the end of the year. We did have some minor conversations about that BEDC office potentially being a micro-business space that Board Member Urbanic brought forward, so I'll let him kind of go through that. And for the record, that was one of the items that was raised when we had the entrepreneurial series, is where can small businesses who office out of their home do professional office space leasing?
So the idea came up when we were visiting with a number of creatives and freelancers that are very small. Also kind of connected with our small business lending program that we have as well. And I think just as initial thought, maybe this might be a good place that we can have temporary spaces if somebody needed to come in and have a temporary office, drop-ins, someone who needed to have internet access, have an opportunity to have a group to collaborate. Maybe have a conference room if they needed on the side, but I'm not sure the ROI is going to work on that in terms of the marketing and what it's going to take in order to for the rental income to come in and justify the expense of the electricity and copy machine and the like. So there's still some research to be done on that, but we'll have to take more of a deeper dive.
What do y'all think about that? I mean, is it something that you want to talk further or put on for another?
The office space?
Yeah.
I actually think it's a great idea. I've actually, we used to have one downtown. Someone opened a business doing it, but I think that it's a good opportunity for residents to have a place to go to plug in. Because just being in an environment like that gets you in business mode. I mean, I try to take my computer in downtown all the time and get very sidetracked. But if they have a setting where you kind of are in business mode, I think it would be good with resources in their space to help them work through their plan. I think it would be a good idea if we have the space for it.
I think it's a good idea, particularly if you could have one, because there's a lot of people that work out of Coffee Dog, myself included, for a little while. And so you either bring your air card or you get on their internet. So having a safe place that you didn't worry about if someone else is sitting around looking at what, on your computer. And then maybe even having a copier or printer that you can hook up to be able to print and do copies. I think a subscription, like a monthly subscription to it, would be a way to go.
That was going to be my question. Is it something that you guys think BEDC just provides for free for the community, or should people have to pay to participate in it? But maybe you're not trying to make a ton of money, but you're trying to break even, one of the things that we've talked about is if you're investing the money, how do you judge the ROI? So what would be that might be something to think about, is what's the parameters for the ROI for the investment? And the idea of, I don't know, maybe it's just free and it's a service that BEDC offers to all the businesses in town. Does that seem fair and right? Or is it, to your point, on your subscription, is it like a month, in your mind, is it a monthly subscription and you can use it as much as you want in a month? And there's I would assume it can be a code key and your little thingy works if you've paid your subscription for that month kind of thing?
I think it's better to charge something even for a drop-in rate or even a monthly rate. So it could be a drop-in. So I also have a friend of mine that did this in College Station, or actually Brian, and it worked really well there. But and I think really the benefit was the collaboration between the creatives, and that's where a lot of ideas came about, and different other services and businesses were built out of that. But there was definitely a subscription for either drop-in or monthly. I think it was $170 a month or $50 for. I don't know what it was for a drop-in, but I know it was $170 a month just to use it for a month. And I think it brings. I think if you're paying a little bit, then you have a little bit more of a reason to take care of the place a little bit more and watch out for what's going on around and that sort of thing.
Yeah. The one thing about Coffee Dog is it's free, or, you know what I mean? I mean, it's a cup of coffee, which is probably not one, I don't know, I don't drink coffee. Is coffee $170 a month if you buy one coffee every
It
year?
used to be for me.
It's also very warm in there.
The drop-in, what was I gonna say? So the times that I've used some in Austin, in the Austin area, they were drop-in. But then you gotta think of how are they gonna pay we're gonna have a QR code that they have to pay. Is there gonna be a time limit? I've seen some that did per hour, cost per hour to stay in the room. I was gonna say something else though. I lost my train of thought there. But I think it's monthly subscription. Oh, there you go. The resources. So the difference between Coffee Dog and doing it at BEDC is you will be paying whatever you pay for the access to resources and to people and to ask questions. And so you're not gonna get that at Google at Coffee Dog. But I think that would be beneficial for people that are really serious about wanting to find a space to be creative.
Well, I think the idea is a really good idea. I think we also have to look at what we're going towards. We're going to be moving office right now. The plan of record is to move over in the City Hall area, that we have our designated area, right? Not sure how big that is, not sure how many more rooms we have available, but if we were to open up a bigger spot, you do need to take into consideration that may impact our budget. We may have to take a look at hiring maybe a part-time or somebody that would be there in order to facilitate these folks using the facility, if you will, right? So I think it's a great idea that may need to talk more about it and get maybe a little more information on it, but we can't forget that that's a budgetary thing that we have to take a look at, especially where we are now. So that would be my comment. Okay.
Has there been any conversation about like meeting space? Because sometimes somebody wants to have a business meeting with someone and they don't want to go to a restaurant downtown. They want to be able to talk and conversate. Have we thought about maybe incorporating that some kind of way into the office space?
Yes, that was part of the discussion, and I'm moved by the ROI argument, but at the same time, the mantra of BEDC is small business development and retention right now. And if that is a super small business need or an emerging business need, you know, I'm wondering how we don't meet the need. I don't believe it's going to have an ROI. I do not believe it's going to have an ROI. It just can't. I mean, struggling businesses or emerging businesses, they just don't have a lot of capital to start with. But I do like the idea where it is, you know, self-paid, you have a key control, because I don't believe that Angela or even whomever we hire part-time can be the requisite Google person, can, you know, how do you help me do this? How do you help me do that? There's, you know, some very limited resources, and the ones that I've been at in Austin or other places, they're essentially self-manned. You know, you go, there's a copier, and you get to pay on a per price basis, and those are all pretty standard. But one of the biggest things we heard was meeting space. When I want to talk to a client, or I want to open up a set of plans, or I want to do something like that, we don't really have a place anymore. Apparently there used to be a place downtown, not necessarily anymore. So whether we partner with somebody at some existing office space, or we transition the BEDC office space, or we try to figure out some other partnership, I don't believe it's going to be a money maker. So I think we need to take that off the table.
Well, and again, maybe the money maker is that it breaks even, you know, and so the fact that we've been in that office space for a period of time, you ought to know what the electric's going to be, what the water's going to be, what the rent's going to, so how much does it cost to have that space? And then it sounds like there's certainly interest of the board of asking staff to look into what are models that work, and, you know, but I think part of the cost of the space that has to be considered is, who do they call when the copier's jammed? Who keeps the printer up and running? Who has the right kind of security on the network so that they're not getting each other's stuff? Who, is there food, is there not food? Who's stocking the refrigerator with water? You know, I mean, those are costs that would occur, and they aren't the end of the world, but that just, if you're gonna do the assessment, you have to do a full assessment of what it would be, and then that'll allow you to come up with, and at these rates, you'd have to have X amount of drop-ins a month, X amount, you know, and maybe you do it for a 1 year to see if it's being used, because the BEDC's budget is now, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but 1 to 1.2, and is this a $100,000 thing? Is this a $50,000 thing? There's a point that you say, well, wait a minute, maybe we're not helping out that many people. If people aren't utilizing it, then that's money that's not getting, that there's not a benefit of. You know, you'd made a comment this morning in our executive meeting that of the 4 series for the small businesses, there were a lot more people at the first one than there were at the last one. So I'm all for helping them, but if we help them with something they don't use, then that's money that we don't have to help them with something that they could use, you know. So I don't disagree that the ROI is not the same as buying a piece of property, but there's got to be some sort of expectation, some percentage of usage, you know, that, okay, well, we're budgeting and knowing we're going to lose $60,000 a year or whatever it is.
Okay, great. Good discussion. All right, we'll move on to 3C, receive information about upcoming events that the BEDC board members may want to attend. Angela?
Yes, sir. We have so many things coming up that I thought it would just be better to throw them all at you at the same time, and then I can follow up tomorrow with an email. It was starting to get a little confusing with things going back and forth, so here's what we've got. The first thing I've been invited to is Accutronics' inauguration of the aerospace component, and it's on Ed Bluestein at 9:30 in the morning on September 10th. Their RSVP closes out on the 6th. So we've all been invited. I confirm that. We can carpool. I just need you to kind of look at your calendars and see if any of you are interested in attending. The State of the City is on September 16th, which just so happens to be the same day as our next board meeting. So we do need to have that discussion as to, I think when Sylvia and I spoke, we thought about maybe moving it up by half hour, keeping the agenda short, everybody just walk across the street when they're done. So far, we have a table of 6 purchased, and I have 5 people committed. So I have 1 more chair. You all, you know who you are. I just need 1 more. And then the last one is we are the gold sponsor on the Austin San Antonio Growth Summit 2024. And I cannot read that, so let me look down my notes here. September 17th from 11 to 1 at the New Braunfels Civic Convention Center. We have a table of 10, so basically we could all go if you wanted to. Again, we could carpool, whatever. And I will be sending out an email probably with all of this on it at the same time. So you could just copy and paste and say yes, no, yes, or, you know, whatever, just whatever's easy. And instead of having 3 or 4 emails going back and forth, I just thought this would be quicker. Whoop, I went too far back. Ah, God, I hate when I do that.
And the leadership summit that was scheduled for tomorrow, does it have a new date, or is it just canceled for tomorrow?
I don't know. That's a chamber event, so there'll be a new date.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Okay, 3D, receive information related to active construction projects in the BEDC Business and Industrial Park.
So I was hoping to have some pictures in here, but they didn't make it into the slide deck. So we have TA Adhesives, which you will be receiving an invitation also to their ribbon cutting. That should be in the September, early October timeframe. And then L&S Electric is in their 3rd expansion phase. L&S Electric shows super interest in other parts of the business park as well, so I wanted to have some pictures in here. I apologize, I'll send those under separate cover.
All right. Good. All right, now we'll move on to number 4, regular business and presentations. 4A, approval of meeting minutes from regular DEC board meetings of July 15, 2024. So, looking for a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Very good, the motion carries. 4B, receive the financial report for the period ending July 2024.
So we have our CFO on go-to meeting. So Araceli, there you go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
you can minimize her, Araceli.
Can I control the slides?
Oh, I don't
Okay.
think you can control them. If you'll just tell me click, I will move forward.
Okay. For our first slide, this is our year-to-date. You can see that we still have a little bit to collect in sales tax. We'll get to that on our next slide. Everything else, we are within our forecasted range. We have not spent a whole lot of money this year, so if our sales tax doesn't come in exactly, then we will still be okay. Next slide.
Edie, before we go, there was a question about interest income and sales tax. So where do we think the sales tax are going to end, number one? And two, why the big anomaly with interest income?
Okay, so we'll go ahead and talk about this here. So our sales tax is a little bit low. Is in line with the general fund, and I do not know, I cannot commit to us hitting our target. I'm not sure whether it is because there are businesses that are not paying, or if it's because sales taxes. We actually looked at sales tax of businesses across the board, and they are even with last year. So there has not been an increase in growth, or much growth. So I cannot promise that we're going to hit it, but hopefully we will. I'm hoping that it is some businesses that are behind on their sales tax. Interest expense is up from budget amount. We have about $9 to $9.5 million sitting in different accounts in cash or investments, and if we're averaging about a 5% interest rate on that, it's about $50,000 a month. And so that's the reason why our year-to-date actual is significantly higher than our budgeted amount. And my assumption is that they budgeted for a lower rate, as they were lower at the last year when they were preparing for budget. We can increase that if you need to, or we can just know that money is there. If there's something that if you would like to spend it on, we can increase the budget, or we can just roll it over into next year for one-time expenses.
Well, the question is, if we amended the budget in April, how did we miss it by 100%?
Oh, I was not touching interest income. We adjusted sales tax.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding your answer. The question is, if we looked back at this at April and we were rolling along at the $50,000 a month, which are showing roughly $250,000 is what they estimated, how come we're now saying it's $542,000, which is a 117% miss? How did we miss that much interest income when the majority of our investments are either in CDs or other types of investment products?
Well, we have a large amount of money in either tax pool or tax range, which is that interest rate has increased.
I don't think when we amended the budget, we touched the interest income
We
line,
didn't.
period. I mean, that's the response. We didn't touch it. We should
We
have
did not.
touched it. It would have showed a greater fall to fund balance. Our ending fund balance would have been greater by that delta, $240,000 or so.
All
No,
right.
290,000.
And then what I'm hearing is that she's hopeful we'll get to 3.064, but probably not, and going to be some percentage shy of that. What are you guys planning? What's the city planning on in your general funds on sales tax?
So I'm hopeful that we're not going to be, in BEDC anyway, that we won't be off by sales tax by that 500, and it would be maybe 100. We have two large taxpayers who haven't paid, but have been paying sort of every other month. So I'm hopeful that they will make their payments and that'll even out. Sales tax has been flat, but it's still higher than last year, if that makes any sense. The sales tax projection was a 5% increase. And so in this year's budget, we only planned a 3.5% increase. We're probably going to miss it also in the general fund.
But because of the amended budget not adjusting to interest, with the budget being 3.3 and we're at 3.1, there's still a chance of making the amended budget revenue. It won't be through
yes.
sales tax, but
Yes.
it'll be through the interest, but that'll
Yes.
help kind of.
Yes, that'll help offset.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And when we do go look at the budget, have we looked at the interest in the budget for next year? And adjusted it appropriately?
We're about to find out.
Okay.
Yes,
Like
we
it's
can
like
do
the
that.
flip
Because we did not make an adjustment for next year, so we can increase that number. So for the month ending July 31st, you can see sales tax was about $46,000 less than projected, and interest income is going to offset that. Most of the expenses are normal operating expenses. We did make a transfer to the city for projects completed. You'll see that on the last slide, the detail of that. We also paid our debt service in July, so that was paid for the year.
So but Edie, you said the interest income is $50,000 a month, and this is showing $70,000 a month. So is it 70 or 50? And did July have a one-off? Did something?
July is going to be a one-off. That $50,000 was just an average that I was calculating based off of an average amount of cash that was being held. We also made a $600,000 payment at the end of, or transfer out at the end of July, and a $250,000 debt service payment. So that's going to pull back from cash.
So to answer your question, she took the sales tax, divided it by 12, and averaged it to 50. But in July, we actually received 70.
Okay, but my question was on the interest income.
That is interest income.
You said sales tax.
Oh, sorry, interest income. So when we do the budget, we do the projection, and we just divide it by 12.
Right, but I thought when we divided by 12, we were at 50, and this one's 70. So I'm
Yes.
asking, what's the difference between the 70 and the 50?
Again, some of those taxpayers, for whatever reason.
It's the,
Yeah,
but that's interest income.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So when my number of 50, I was just taking an average over the year, multiplying it by 5%, dividing it by 12. The interest rate, maybe today it may be 5.74, tomorrow it may be 4.93. It adjusts. And so that was just a quick and dirty number. And based on $9 million with a 5% interest rate.
I'm sorry, Ron, what was that?
I'm sorry that I seem to be so confused on this, but are we buying CDs that have a set rate, or are we going on a daily fluctuating
So
like a
most of our
LIBOR
money
rate?
is in TexPool and TexStar. TexPool and TexStar is just a municipal holding place for everybody, and it has a variable rate.
Per day? Okay, thank you. That explains it. Thank you.
We, at your next month's board meeting, when we have met with Board Member Bonnick, we've talked about a more aggressive investment policy.
Maybe for budget.
Okay, next slide. Okay, this shows our sales tax from fiscal 23 to fiscal 24. And of course, the big difference is going to be the decrease in the sales tax allocation. Next slide. Okay, this is the fund balance, and I know that there was a question on why Mocha Ventures was $333,000. They had purchased the land for $900,000. In an amendment to the agreement, they committed $500,000 to financial way, which left $400,000. There were some settlement expenses of about $63,000. So that reduced it. I'm not sure what the other $3,000 was, but that was what I could find. I was not here when all of these transactions took place, but I dug for information and.
So let me summarize that for the board so that we're super clear. So Mocha paid $900,000 for the property. There was a settlement cash received to the Bastrop EDC of $836,000. Cash received from Mocha. $500,000 of that was drawn down to pay for Financial Way. So 500 less 836 is 336. So there's a difference of about $3,500 that she needs to reconcile to for Mocha Ventures. Given what the board just decided, any additional monies owed to Mocha Ventures would be moved out of fund balance into a settlement, should it be determined.
We'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Yes. The other question was contributed capital, Edie.
For Accutronic, so we set up an escrow account with that payment that was received. Any money that we have to pay from them will come out of that. So we set it up as a liability. So it is not revenue. It's not revenue unless they default on their restrictions or their whatever they have to meet. So we have it set aside.
The other piece that is showing here, Fiesta was originally $233,000, but there was an amendment made, so that amount will be cut in half to about 116 and some change. So that number will increase.
So is the plan in the future to use contributed capital accounts, or why wasn't it restricted with a project name like the other ones?
We'll have to go through that. Some stuff is listed as liabilities, and there's some cleanup that has to happen in all of the statements.
It might be helpful to maybe put the project name beside that, and then because y'all said
Yes,
this
it'll be
morning,
clear.
Frank was like, I know we talked about it, but I don't, that would be helpful if the project name was there.
So that fund balance end of year should increase by 116,000 and some change.
This is just laying out capital outlay. We have not spent any more on Financial Way so far. Accutronic I have not seen any expenses come through for that. In the sports complex, we did get some today, but that was not in July. So that will be updated for August.
That was the first invoice from Navis Consulting.
And then this is detailing out the drawdown from EDC to the city for the projects. We have spent $228,000 on Blakey. Downtown lighting, $78,390. Agnes, the full $123,000, and intersection improvements, the full $207,500. So we transferred $637,165. Blakey, it will be a little while before we spend the rest of it, but downtown lighting will probably be spent before the end of the year.
And Angela, in your Dropbox, Angela put the intersection improvement summaries and a couple of other items.
Thank you very much. Okay, 4C, presentation, discussion, and possible action on approval of BEDC's fiscal year 2025.
So I'll bring up the budget sheet here in a minute that was in your packet. Just a summary: revenue 1.4, expenses 1.3, surplus deficit $34,000. The decrease in sales tax was obviously the 1/8 of a cent. The proposed budget includes a 3.5% COLA and a 2.5% step increase. The 3.5% COLA is actually 3.3% COLA, and that was included in the city budget for city staff. I'm not sure how this board has treated BEDC staff previously, if you've been equal to. So there was no rate increase for health insurance, but we've already been told to plan for a rate increase for next year because we had the one pass. And then it includes the operations manager, the bear position, a part-time employee, and the stipend that is paid to me. And then it cuts occupancy expenses because of the move to City Hall, but it increases the shared services because of the move to City Hall. And then there are no new projects in a transfer to city projects that are funded. That's because we don't have anything else. We won't be coming to BEDC. Anything that BEDC expends on a project will be for a BEDC recommended project.
On the city project, I went to the resource. I'm going back to it. And the intersection project is a report from Kimley Horn, but it's dated June of '23. So that wouldn't have been in the fiscal '24 financials.
That project, I believe, started during that time period. I'm not sure when it was completed. I'll have to look into that.
Okay, so if you,
Yeah.
if we could just double check that,
Yeah.
because this, I don't know if y'all are trying to say the report was 207,000, but the report's dated June of '23, which would have been, I'm sure they sent their bill before October, so that
I'll
would have
check
been a
into that.
fiscal year '23 expenditure.
I'll check into that. I am not aware of any actual intersection improvements that
And
have
that's
occurred.
what, that's, honestly, that's what surprised me, that there was 207,000 spent, because it was like, I haven't seen, I know the intersections we had talked about, and I haven't seen any intersection improvements, so I didn't know where the $207,000 went.
I'll get an itemized bill
Thank
from
you.
Kimley Horn. These are just the rest of the budget line items. Zero budgeted for water rights, land grant rebates, or Opportunity Austin. There was some rumblings I thought I heard among the board that maybe we want to revisit the Opportunity Austin conversation, and we can do that at this meeting, or I can do that with the executive committee. So we did put $200,000 for any additional expense that would come out of the business park that was not planned. And we did put $50,000 for sports complex expenses, although I believe that number should be $60,000 based on what you're going to see in the next budget item. And then no new debt service. So Araceli, if you could bring up the budget PDF that I sent. I'm not sure how much it's going to be visible on the screen. There you go. Can you zoom that in a little bit? Yeah. So this is the line item budget that's included in your packet and is posted online, and we're happy to take any questions.
So it shows interest income at 250, so that looks like something that needs to be looked at.
Yes.
And you're saying the sales tax is at a, did you tell us 3 or 3.5%?
3.5%.
3.5%, year over year.
That's 3.5 based on last year's projection.
1.8.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay, that makes sense.
So we'll touch sales tax. So Edie, if you would make the adjustment to interest income.
I will.
And the lease agreement of 18, is that's not city shared services? Which lease is that?
That's your office lease, correct? Your lease. Office rental is 10,800. I'm sorry, Board Trader, where are you at?
I'm at 601-00004385. Oh, sorry, 4047. I'm right below sales tax.
40447?
4047, the third line.
Yes.
That's the lease agreement we have for the cell phone tower in the industrial park.
Thank you.
And it will go up. In 2 or 3 more years, we'll be getting a little more. Plus, we're getting some sort of royalties off of it in the amount of approximately $700 a month. So
Okay,
it's pretty
thank
good.
you. You said there was an adjustment which we all expected, but help me find the city office, because I see city administrative support 25 and 25 flat. That's office rental. So what is the new office rate? I'm just not sure
Where
which
are we?
line
Where did
item
we
it's
put it?
on.
So here's 25 for the,
Is it the 10 to 20?
10 to 20 is one component.
And then the administrative support stayed
That's
flat at 25?
Yeah, that's flat. We have,
I'm sorry, the summary slide said what they were, I just didn't see what the numbers were.
Adeseli, can you go back to the PowerPoint? Sorry. No, that's a reduction. That's the office rental reduction. That stayed flat. Seems like IT. Let me go back. Do I have the clicker? Do I have the clicker power? Oh, here you go. Shared occupancy expenses were reduced 25% of prior years, so that goes to the 10,800, and then shared services increased. So we went from 10 to 20 under shared, and the office space went from blank to 10,800. Went from,
Okay, so it's still in the office rental line
yes, from 43,200
from
to
43 to the
10,800.
10.8? Okay. I didn't know if that would be rolled to, I didn't know you would use the same line item for paying a contract rent to a third party as you would to city shared services. Thank you.
We can clean it up if that would. I think that's a really good deal.
Sylvia, can you give me a little more information on the training travel, right? You went from 1,500 to 28,005 with a note that says potential board training consultant.
Sure. So the board has not had a retreat or a long-term planning exercise. So we put a little bit of money in there in case you were going to hire a third-party person to come in and handle the retreat and any of the retreat expenses.
Thank you.
Mhm. Yes, tonight we're looking for an approval of the budget. I already know I have an amendment to the interest income, but is there anything else?
So based on what we're going to hear on I think the next line item, you've got the sports complex study at 50. That's probably going to be a little more than that, right?
Sure, we have small amount, we have 25,000 in contingency.
Oh, okay.
That we could just move from there.
Okay, thank you.
And then the other parts of that, Chair, is that project, it's starting in this year and will carry on into next year. So we may receive some expenses in this budget year.
Okay. Well, I'm sure on the next topic, we're going to take a
Yes.
look at that. And
Yes.
it'll probably be done in this year, I would imagine, but
Yes.
we'll see. Okay. Right, no, you're right. So I guess we need a motion to approve this budget then, right? Okay, are there any other questions? Then we're going to need a motion to accept the,
Motion to approve the budget.
I'll second.
all those in favor say aye. Aye. I need everybody to say it, or not? Okay, any opposed to this motion? All right, the motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Sorry, let me get to the agenda here.
Let's get to the sexy stuff.
Yeah. Well, we had this young man over here that's been waiting for a long time, so let's, why don't we go ahead and go ahead and jump to 4E. I hate you sitting here listening to all this stuff, so let's go ahead and move to that if you guys don't mind. Consideration and possible action on the Bastrop Economic Development Corporation revolving loan fund and a proposed partnership with Roscoe Bank.
Okay.
And
Do we want to hear the
do we want to hear the public address before we get into this? Would that, Charlie, is that the appropriate way to do it? Okay, then please come on up, Mr. Hamilton.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alex Hamilton, a credit officer with First National Bank of Bastrop, and I'm here to comment on item number 4E of today's agenda, consideration and possible action on Bastrop Economic Development Corporation revolving loan fund and a proposed partnership with Roscoe Bank. The specific issue I have with the proposition is the limiting the partners to Roscoe Bank instead of local lenders such as banks or credit unions as written in the initial version of the program policy. The mission of the Bastrop EDC is to be a driving force to attract, support, and sustain the economic growth of Bastrop County, which includes its individuals, businesses, and financial institutions. I would ask you to keep this in mind as you consider this proposition.
Chair, so thank you, Mr. Hamilton. The original, and so Mr. Hamilton, perhaps you're not aware, so maybe we need to bring this full circle. Maybe the audience at home also needs to understand. So when the small business program was developed, it was Roscoe Bank who provided the seed money of $100,000. We welcome more banks to provide additional seed money. So if First National Bank would like to contribute $100,000 over 5 years at $20,000 a year that the EDC will potentially match, we'd love to partner with you too. This was the initial partnership because they still hold the seed money. The RLF is being modified to take the EDC out of the lending business because right now Angela and I process the applications and things, and it is much safer to act as a guarantor, a small business administration guarantor, than it is to actually practice the lending, and then you got the dunning letters and the delinquency and all that other good stuff. And so this was our first out of the bank, but we would love to entertain a future item that says a partnership with First National Bank with additional seed money. Board?
And any other bank. or
Yes,
credit
any other
union
bank.
that is
Welcome,
listening,
welcome, any
that-
and
yeah,
all,
It's
yes.
not, it was by no means intended to be
No.
restrictive. And in fact, maybe the advantage for some of the other banks is that some of the agreements have been worked out and reviewed by legal, and we've
We
kind of
cut
got
our
a
teeth on this
process.
first one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the rest of that, and Sylvia, I know you kind of implied this, was trying to set up the businesses that they're doing business with a bank
Yes.
instead of with BEDC, who's not a bank that they could do business with in the future. And trying to, in the role of a guarantor, where it's like, man, we would like to make this loan, but it's just a little too risky. And if it meets our criteria, then it gives them it's another grown-up
Yes.
step of standing on their own and making payments to a bank and helping their credit, because making payments to us isn't really going to do anything to further their business.
And- or their credit.
That's how we try to attract and retain and expand, is be the guarantor and make the introduction for that relationship. But we'd love to have many, many of them.
Yes, yes. And I will give kudos to First National Bank that at the entrepreneurial series, we asked all of the banks to come in, and we had 3 partner banks, I believe, come in. We had First National, we had Roscoe, and I believe we had Versa. Councilmember Lee, do you remember? We had one other, Prosperity. So, and we sent out the invitation, and First National had about 3 people there. So our goal with the small business community is to continue to use local to establish those relationships, because there's nothing like being across your loan officer and being able to talk through that. Especially statistics show, especially under historically underutilized businesses, hubs, Hispanics specifically, and other ethnicities, we have a tendency to not want to be in front of the person, and those are historical things. But to your point, Board Member Schrader, is developing a relationship, building the credit, which we don't report to the credit agency, so there would be no benefits along this route of being able to establish and develop a good credit rating. So, Chair Bonnick, since you did the legwork.
I think you did it pretty eloquently there. Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is that, I'm a recovering banker, but we're not lenders. And so we give it to the people who are in that business. Again, like City Manager said, I mean, we don't pull credit and we don't report to a credit. So it's better off that they go through a bank for their application. And then there's an opportunity for you to cross-sell and that sort of things. But again, I mean, Roscoe is the ones that put the money up, so that's why we went to them.
But happy to have a conversation with you tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you, and sorry it took so long to get to that portion. All right, we will move back. Oh, go ahead.
No, this is
Do
an
we need a
action-
possible-
Yes,
this is
this is
action.
an action item.
Oh, sorry.
So, Chair, or Director Urbani, would you like to make the motion since you've put the most amount of work in this one?
Yep, please. How you want
I
to say
think
it?
it's to approve the revolving loan
Yeah.
and the proposed partnership, just the agenda item.
I motion on the agenda item to approve the partnership with Roscoe Bank and the small business platform.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Aye. All those opposed? Good, the motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay. We'll now move to 4D, consideration and possible action recommending the city contract with Hunden Partners for a sports facility market demand, a financial feasibility and economic impact study for a proposed sports complex to be located within the Bastrop Business and Industrial Park.
Sylvia just informed me she had to take a small break.
That's okay.
Before I forget, I did have a quick conversation with our legal counsel before the meeting, because everything else with the revolving loan fund has been handled via resolution. We think it may be best to go ahead and ask legal to come up with a new resolution with these changes. I'm speaking for Charlie, I know, but he did agree with me before the meeting, I swear.
Probably best practice to be consistent.
Best practices, okay. It helps to memorialize things, that way, you know, if I get hit by a bus, people will know what happened, but we didn't know what to put into a resolution beforehand. There were too many, questions, so.
Charlie, can we make a motion that do you need to bring a resolution back, or we can?
We'll just put it in the form of a resolution and have it executed.
So you're okay with the motion the way it is? All right.
Okay, perfect, and that brought me just enough time.
Okay. Facility market demand, thank you for that. It's been a long day. At the last board meeting, the board engaged Navis Consulting to help us conduct a feasibility study and a next step path for the proposed sports complex at the industrial park. The project scope is It was in the EDC strategic plan in 2019. It can provide direct and indirect sales tax benefit. And so step one is a comprehensive feasibility analysis using a public-private partnership model. So the market study would be based on demographics, region, socioeconomics. Now, we have some of this information from the 2019 EDC study and also from the 2023 Parks Master Plan. And so this feasibility study will include a basic site evaluation, a simple financial model for costs and revenues, an impact analysis, economic impact analysis, and will include some site visits for the selected firm. Catherine Caffrey, who is Navis Consulting, interviewed 6 firms. The executive committee was able to see the firms that were selected for interview and their ranking. And Catherine also provided the reference checks where possible. These folks that had done these projects before, where they had done them, and if there was any issues with the projects that were in process. So the firm that was selected is Hunden Partners. It's a mid-sized company. They have a lot of experience with hotels and mixed-use projects. And also sports complex. And so as we talk about maybe partnering with a qualified hotel project, et cetera, this seemed to be a partner that had the best experience. They focus on placemaking and creating districts that has a sports complex as an anchor. They do not do facility management or construction, which was one of the things that was super important to us, that the person that was bidding wasn't also going to be the person that was potentially constructing. For obvious reasons. References indicated that the firm was very transparent and honest in their assessment and easy to work with extensive Texas experience, with 80% of their clients being in the public sector. So the process and timeline, we've been told this is about a 12-week process, so the goal is to have a complete feasibility study by the end of the year. The market findings and preliminary report would take 8 weeks. The fiscal modeling and refining the report would take 1 to 2 weeks, and then the final report 1 to 2 weeks after that. That's the 12-week timeline at the longest. The shortest is 10. So a 10 to 12-week process. Any questions? And I'm sure Catherine would have delivered that report much better than I did, except she's in Seattle with a different client.
We need a motion to go ahead and get started on this feasibility study. Unless you have, are there any questions? Any questions from any of the
I think you
directors?
should talk about the committee.
Okay. Yeah, let's step back a little bit. Thank you, that's a good one. So the committee has been comprised of 3 directors of the EDC and 3 city council members. And we've been meeting every 2 weeks to go over the entirety of it. It's a great working committee. We've really made some good advances. We learned a long time ago that nobody on the committee is going to be making the design and the layout of it, because that's not what we do. We decided to go ahead and do our due diligence, because this is tax money. And the due diligence is such that we need this feasibility study so that we know that we're on the right path. I think everybody in the committee believes that we are, but we're doing our due diligence and making sure that we get this feasibility study. Upon that determination, we decided to go find an entity that would be able to, let's just say, facilitate this. We were first approached by an individual that wanted to basically do all of it one turnkey type of deal, and that didn't really work for us. We were contacted by Catherine and brought her in to do an interview to get an idea of what she's been able to do, and we were very impressed with her capabilities, what she's been working on in the past. And then we outlined a statement of work. We decided to go ahead and approve that statement of work, and she's already been involved with it for a little while. We then set out to give guidelines of what the feasibility should include, so that she has a reference point of what we're looking for. She contacted us and asked us specifically, will you guys allow people that want to build it and operate it to actually do the feasibility study? And we determined that was probably not in the best interest of the committee. We wanted an arm's length transaction here. So we made the determination that we are not going to allow that. She then came back with 6, I believe, different firms that we went over each one of them, what their strengths were, what they'd done in the past, get an idea of who would be leading it. And we then determined at that point in time, which was one of our last meetings here, that this firm, Hunden, would be the right one to go with. And we had then asked Kat to please go and get a proposal sent to us, which we have the proposal. So with this presentation that's been given tonight, I believe that at least the committee is all for it to go ahead and get this done as well. But since the EDC is the one that's paying for this, we need the approval from this board of directors to go ahead and get started on the feasibility study. So with that, are there any questions? Oh, yeah, sorry. So, yeah, sorry. On 4D, there's a little bit of an amendment. It said recommend the city contract. The city's not going to contract with them. The EDC is going to be the contract. We're going to be paying for this, so it's not the city.
Yes, Allison is fixing it.
Well, any questions from, okay? You wanna make that motion? Is there
I'll make a
resolution?
motion
Okay.
for the, recommending the EDC contract with Hunden Partners for a sports facility, market demand, financial feasibility, and economic impact study.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Good, the motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to 4F, update on BEDC funding commitments.
Okay, I just wanted to touch on some updates on these particular, there's 2 pages. One page in your packet, but I have split it out into 2 pages to make it more legible on the screen. So Super Glue, which is technical adhesives, they're currently getting their equipment installation team ready. Well, they've probably already done that. They may be ready for occupancy by the end of September or early October, as Ms. Sylvia has already mentioned. On Fiesta, we did cut the amount in half. The final drainage and site development plans have been submitted and reviewed. I know they're working very hard to get those building permits in on time. Sylvia's got the Viviana helping directly with them, so she may have do you have more of an update than I do?
We're going into executive session.
Okay, so skip that one. Mocha Ventures, we've already taken care of that. And then you know about Accutronic and they're having a big thing, but they also went to Select USA in June, and they were announced there. You can see there's pictures of them receiving, accolades. Excuse me. They're currently awaiting documentation from Blue Bonnet Electric for their electricity connection, and then they can get started on submitting different kinds of plans, and they're going to be working on the infrastructure as well. Okay, on this page, we know that Financial Way is done. Jacket extension. Okay, Blakey Lane is now up to 90% design plans. That's a change. The Bearded Baker, I think Ms. Carrillo has a little bit more of an update, but we're having a little bit of difficulty getting him to get caught up, but I think as of Friday, he's just about caught up. Okay, very good. And we also did a recent social media post on him, so that's out there. It's also on our website. That's all I have. Do you have any questions?
For clarification purposes, back on Jackson Extension, the last sentence is BEDC ended agreement and last invoice has been paid. Refresh my memory, which agreement has it ended? That was Doucette, okay. Great.
That was the southern extension of the infrastructure that we were no longer able to afford after the...
No,
yeah.
That's
why it's all been settled out and done.
Thank you very much.
Okay, on this page where it says fiber in the business park for 82,560, it's in the budget as 84,560, and it's also has a line item of employee bond that's also listed as the same account number as also 84,560. If you look at the Excel sheet. And it just caught my eye because that number doesn't match what's on here. And I know it's a budget number and maybe it's close, but if it's a contractual agreement,
Yeah.
I would expect the number to match. But I have a hard time believing that our employee bonds are $84,000.
No, that might be a lineup.
So it's account number 601-70-00-5580. So I just think there's something wrong, but it carried down to the math, so it might matter. And I was going to ask you afterwards, because we've already voted on it, but then you talked about the fiber in the business park, so.
Yeah, that's an incorrect label. That 84,560,
And it's in there
carries down.
twice.
Yeah.
So you might just
Yep.
clean that up. And I know you can bring back amendments, and I'm not trying to unapprove the budget, but I just think that's a wrong line item.
I appreciate you noticing that because I know I didn't see it. Thank you.
Okay, well, once again, we're going to be going back into executive session. 5A, the Bastrop EDC Board of Directors will meet in a closed executive session pursuant to the Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, to discuss the following. Number one, Section 551.087, Economic Development Negotiations regarding Project Electric Lion. Number two, Section 551.071, Consultation with Attorney regarding the performance agreement with Project Fiesta. We've already done number three. And then we will come back, Board of Directors will reconvene into open session to discuss, consider, and/or take any action necessary related to the executive session noted herein. And it is 7:41 p.m. Okay, it is now 7:59 p.m., and the Bastrop EDC Board of Directors will reconvene into open session to discuss, consider, and/or take any action necessary related to the executive session noted herein, and I don't believe we have any actions on that. Therefore,
Motion to adjourn?
all those in favor? Aye. Adjourned. Thank you very much for your time. Time is still 7:59 p.m.